don't ever have an excuse of what you're trying to do. Don't worry about the failure that might occur because it didn't get to where you want, but give it your all.
Well, we're pretty good in Canada starting companies, and we certainly see just an incredible, vibrant, startup culture here. But one of our challenges are companies don't scale globally, and Four Seasons is sort of one of the examples with almost 100 hotels now. How did you think about going global? That first hotel in London, was it a bit opportunistic? Was there a very strategic plan to it?
It was London. And, I had this opportunity, and I said, why not? Sure, I would try to do it. And again, it's you at the right time, and people buy into what you are saying, and trust goes a long way. So, no, that was just the third hotel that came my way, and I said, yeah, I would love to do it if we could. And worked on that for 5 years to get it to be a reality. So, how we were operating, based upon this very simple formula, we knew we could go anywhere in the world, and we would be able to, hire people from that local community to become as adept and as qualified, giving the service we're talking about, because of that. So the expansion was very slow. First we built in Canada. As we built as much as Canada could take, we had an opportunity to go into the United States. 2 hotels, one acquiring the Clifton San Francisco, and the other was taking over the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago. So these are very slow stepping stone approach. Opportunities came our way. I think the major leap, you might say, that took us into a more global company is the opportunity when we could buy another company that was based primarily in Asia. And that was the Regent Hotel. So that came on the market, they got into trouble. We put forward a business plan that the banks bought into. So in one major step, we acquired, I think, 16 hotels that were primarily in the other parts of the world. So that sort of gave us, a real entree. Because to do it one at a time would have been very difficult. And then once you've got a critical mass, you're then expanding based upon that footprint. So, but we have found, working internationally in we're in 38 different countries. We always try to align ourselves with partners who know how to do business in those countries, because cultures are all different. We don't try to impose our way of doing things. It's a learning curve that we certainly made our mistakes, but not ones that would hurt us that badly.
So was the fact that you were a Canadian, or were bringing a Canadian brand into those foreign markets, was it helpful, of no consequence?
No, I think it was. I think Canada was always looked upon with some respect. We're a laid-back type of country. We're not out there pushing ourselves in any kind of garish way. So we're not what they used to call the ugly American. And it's interesting, we fly the Canadian flag at every hotel. So we got our banner up there. And there was, in Cairo, many, many years ago, we had our hotel, and there was a bit of an uprising. Not the one this spring, but just a normal, unsettlement of the crowd. So we had our Canadian flag in our hotel, and just nearby there was a McDonald's. They trashed the McDonald's and walked right by ours. And I think that Canadian flag was probably a symbol that, hey, these are Canadians, they're okay.
Yeah.
So, my business relations, I've never found any resistance to who I am or being a Canadian. I think it's a good badge of honor. It's a good badge of honor. You come in with a low profile.
Yeah.
And that, I think, helps people accept you, that first meeting.
So one of the hotly debated topics is the unique characteristics of the entrepreneur. What do you think was sort of your unique thing that was very helpful to you, and maybe what character trait got in the way sometimes?
Well, I played all the sports when I was young, and I really enjoyed that. And I really saw within that competitive field, there's always somebody better. Mm-hmm. There always is. So it gives you an insight into yourself. You're capable of doing so much, but don't think you're the smartest person in the room. So I think you have to know yourself, and you have to be confident in what you know about yourself, and what you think you can contribute. And I think we're all, as I mentioned before, we all have something that is ours, that we feel good about, that we can do, maybe, that's a skill set. But don't measure yourself against the world's best. Always just assume whatever you're going to do, you're going to give it 100%. You're not going to leave anything on the table. You're going to go as hard as you can. You're going to try it as best you can. I think the worst word you can use when you're doing something is if. Oh, I could have won that race if I would have practiced. Oh, I could have passed and got a high if I would have studied. Oh, I would have got through that if I would have tried harder. Don't ever have an excuse of what you're trying to do. Don't worry about the failure that might occur because it didn't get to where you want, but give it your all. If you have a belief in something, just run that full, go for it. If you truly believe it. Because what that gives you is what I mentioned before, is that I believe this motel would work. I just couldn't understand why other people couldn't see it. It took me 5 years to become an overnight success. But I really firmly believed in it, and I've always felt that. Mm-hmm. And what that also gives you is an ability to communicate to others your belief. And salesmanship is a great part of being an entrepreneur. You have to be able to sell yourself. You have to be able to convince people that what you think can happen, you're going to make happen. So I think it's part of the ability to accept risk without the fear of what happens if. So you're going to get different types of people who are managers who will be very analytical, they'll always look at the pros and cons, and they'll always look at the, what will I gain, what will I lose, and make a mathematical calculation. I think you have to sort of skip from point 1 to point 10 in terms of what you think will work. And on those lists that you do make, the pros and cons of any decision, it's not how many points are on a list. It's what are the important points. What are the things that you will not compromise on? What is it you say, this is a deal breaker, if they can't give me this, I don't want this deal. And be a great compromiser. Understand when you're negotiating, you have to know what the other person's needs are. You have to understand where they're coming from. And you have to be able to say, I think I can give that person what they're looking for if they can give me what I need. So always know what it is you need, and always understand or try to understand what the other person's needs are, and also understand the personality you're dealing with. So it's a learning curve. You gain that insight as you go through the stages of business.
So let me ask one more question, and then we'll open it up. There are mics in the audience, so if any of you have a burning question. What are you most proud of this extraordinary business legacy, personal legacy? Well,
as mentioned as we walked in, I started the Terry Fox runs, the ones that we do. And we just completed our 35th year, September 20th, where we had our annual Terry Fox run that we put together in Wilkett Creek Park. It was a great success. We had 3 levels of government there helping us launch this 35th year. And we were driving back with my wife from that. And it was quite emotional because, you know, just prior to that, a doctor had informed us. We had a pep rally at the office. And he said, and he's part of the Terry Fox monies that have been raised, over $700 million worldwide. And he said, let me explain to you what's happened in 35 years. 35 years ago, the success rate of curing generally all cancers, lumped into one, would be 50% for children and 40% for adults. He said, today, it's about 80% for children and 70% for adults. But what's most important, there are several cancers that I know, and I'm talking to a parent about their child's, will they recover? I can guarantee that parent 100% will be cured. That's what's happened over 35 years. So as we're driving back from this run site, or passing a few things that I had already built before in my building days, and you know, I said, look, Rosie, I did that, and it's pretty good. She said, I know you've done a lot of good things, but the thing that you've done that's the most rewarding is starting the Terry Fox run. She said, that's your legacy, not Four Seasons. It's just a business. But that's something that has had has been so meaningful to so many other people. Because people who we have at this run we call Terry's team. And they're all kids who've suffered with cancer, are recovering. And one young lady we had there, she said, I had the same cancer as Terry Fox. I didn't lose my leg, and I'm 100% cured today because of the monies raised through Terry Fox Run. So that would be my personal belief.
Hi, Mr. Sharp. Thank you very much for coming, and a big congratulations on the success of Four Seasons Hotel. My name's Arthur, and my question is in regard to the talent management at Four Seasons. So it was mentioned early on that Four Seasons Hotel has been consistently recognized throughout the entire world as one of the best places to work in. And you know, with the new generation of the workforce, on average, changing careers and jobs between 4 to 6 times in our lifetime, what does Four Seasons Hotel do to maintain not only the employee talent, but also the loyalty that really builds the foundation of your success?
Yeah, good question. Because most people who do join a company only think of it a 4 or 5 year tenure. We have fortunately adhere to and support the mandate of promoting from within. Now, I could never say that when we first started because you didn't have the people that you could rely upon, that you could always say that and promise it. But today we do. So anybody in the company has to throw their name in the hat for a promotion anywhere in the world, providing they can measure up. So it's all a meritocracy. So this started, I guess after we started with London, and then a little later than that, is when I would put forward that as our commitment, that if people would join this company and they found it as a work environment that suited them, we would try to support their career. And that has worked flawlessly. We have many people who have spent their better part of the working life working for the company, have retired, very wealthy. And today, the people who are running the senior parts of this company are all from within the company. We have recently hired from the outside a CEO. But people who work in the company, as the fortune said, we're one of the best companies to work for. So headhunters are always knocking on our door for good people. So they have choices. They always do. And they choose to stay with Four Seasons because it suits their personal needs, both from what they believe is a career opportunity and for the work environment. Remember what you've heard, not from me, but from somebody else. You must love what you do. It's very important to make sure when you get up, hey, this is what I want to do. Life is limited. Each day you have, you're spending. And you want to make sure you spend it well. So work is such a big part of our life that you want to make sure you're devoting your time and energy to what you want to do. And that comes from the passion that you might have for the job you've got. So we've been able to develop a workforce that has, by their choice, decided to stay with Four Seasons to help the company grow. We have the lowest turnover rate of any company. I would say not just in the hotel industry, but almost any company. Because people do find it a way of life that suits them. Will that be the same going forward? I think so. Because the younger generation, the millennium, and the things you like to do, and you're all online and doing things differently. And that's great, because that's what you're sort of, this time in your life, that's what you want. You want to explore and find out what's happening. But eventually you will settle into a little more responsible way of life. We all do. So when we're, look, I was the most irresponsible kid growing up. My wife said she didn't think we're ever going to stay married. You know, I was just that kind of person. We just celebrate our 60th year. So you do grow up, and you gain a maturity. And slowly you sort of end up looking at how you are going to manage your responsibilities. So yes, when you're 20 and 25 and 30, you might move around a bit, and people do. But eventually you're going to hit something that's going to make sense to you. Maybe it's a place that you feel you can go right to the top, or that you can find a role in there that suits you. We can't all be the CEO of a company. It just doesn't work that way. But we can all play a good major role in a company. So I believe we will still be able to attract and retain the quality of people we need to be able to continue running. Because years back, as you know, we're a private company now, but when we were a public company, and the analysts used to ask, you know, where are the skeletons? You know, it just looks so good, but tell me, where are your problems? And I was very frank with them. I said, look, I don't know. Our only way we can continue to grow is if we can continue to attract the people, and they will stay with the company. And that's not in my control. And that's our Achilles heel. If we couldn't, then we would have a limitation on what we could do. But then we went through the very good times and the very bad times. And we didn't lose anybody of any significance in the good times. So I figured, you know what? If people, that's when they all have choices, because everybody's looking for good people. If we didn't lose our good people when things were great, we're certainly not going to lose them when things are in the dumps. So I modified that a bit and said, I think we do have a way of preserving our culture. And it's worked. Will that continue to work? I have no doubt it will.